Hello and welcome to episode 1154 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Friday, March 10th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this morning by not just Justin Mason, but also special guest Eric Samulski. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing? I know it's very early for you, Justin. Eric, I believe you're on the East Coast, right?
I am. Yeah.
So it's not
still early for me.
It's early, but it's not crazy.
No, it's not just an early.
Yeah. Well, we got plenty to talk about, and we are in a little bit of a time crunch, so let's just dive right in. Eric's going to join us. Eric and I were actually in the same TGFBI league, which we are crawling to the finish line. We started.
Oh wait, you guys are still not done?
No, we just finished. Yeah, with a Jason Dominguez final pick to wrap up.
That's right. I finished, and then I closed it out, so I didn't see because I was the first pick of the last round. So I guess it finished yesterday, but yeah, just finished. So we started slow. Got going at a normal pace for a while, and then kind of crawled to the very end of the finish line there. But it did finish yesterday.
You took Brian Anderson from me with your last pick, and then closed the whole thing down.
That's exactly it. Because I have Raz Slam, so I had two drafts going. I was like, okay, I can take one of these off the board. That'll be great. But yeah, we're actually going to talk some TGFBI versus other ADPs at the NFBC. But we got some news to talk about first. And it's not good. Of course, in spring, it's usually bad news. It's usually injury news. And we're going to start with the Yankees and Carlos Rodón shut down with a forearm strain. Velo was way down in a start. You know, he's throwing like 92, down from like 98, which was pretty scary. Eric, let's start with you on this Carlos Rodón injury. He obviously has major health history. Does this take him off your board? Are you moving him way down? Or are you going to try to take advantage of a potential discount here with Carlos Rodón? Because obviously the price will drop. Where do you stand currently?
Yeah, I'm gonna move him down, not take him fully off. I know that you try to like read through the tea leaves with the rhetoric, and they're shutting him down for 7 to 10 days from throwing, and then they're gonna try to like reevaluate him. His quote yesterday was something to the extent of like, I'm not here to, that basically he could pitch through it. But he said like, I'm not here to pitch to the All-Star game. I'm here to last through the whole season. Mm-hmm. So instead of trying to pitch through it now, he's going to rest and get healthy. So like, there's enough being said that I'm kind of like, I don't want to fully, turn the page, but also, you guys had this conversation when weeks ago when you were talking about Tyler Glasnow and mentioned the like 300 inning post Tommy John honeymoon that I think Jeff Zimmerman talked about, and Rodón has hit that. He's over 300 innings the last 2 years, so that does open up the possibility that like maybe the honeymoon is over. So I think you got to discount a little bit, but I'm not going to fully remove.
Okay, I think that's a fair way to play it. I'm going to move him down as well. I already did. I kind of sliced off a handful of innings. Justin, what are you doing with Carlos Rodón here? I only had him for 177 innings, which isn't crazy. So I'm moving him down a little bit. That's going to push him down the board. I'm eager to see where he goes. What are you doing? Moving off, moving down, or buying in?
Yeah, so I updated my projections for all the injured players on Wednesday, and in that process, I actually moved him up my ranks. Right before this happened. And I even texted you and Jason and Eno. We have a little text thread thing that we do. I was like, anybody worried about Rodón throwing 92? And I think all of you guys are like, nah, it's fine. And I was like, I'm gonna go watch it. And of course, the miles per hour were not available on that telecast. I was like, well, this is useless. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to bump him up. I think I bumped him up to 165 innings or something like that.
In fairness, I didn't answer, so
yeah.
Okay. I don't want to take heat on that. Let's blast Eno and Jason there. They said it was fine. Double down, buy as much as you can. Let's crush them on it. I didn't.
And that had moved him up to 5 in my starting pitchers. Because it's on a per inning basis. I think he's really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, now this has happened. He's completely off my board. I know you guys said, you're just moving him down. I'm not going to mess with this. When I'm drafting my first starting pitcher, which is where you have to take a guy like Rodón in order to get him.
Sure.
you want a guy who's gonna deliver innings, and
Sure,
at
sure,
this
sure, sure.
point, I just don't know that you can bank on that. And so yeah, I'm probably gonna drop him below 100 innings, and
Wow.
he will not be
Yeah, you
on
will not get
my
Rodon in that
Yeah.
rosters at all. Yeah.
So it depends where he goes, where he drops down to for me, because I am slicing off a handful of innings. I only had him at
What did you
177.
put him at? I went 130 for right now.
Oh wow. Okay, so maybe I'm too high. I don't know. I put him at 158,
Okay.
and that moved him down to SP 23 for Carlos Rodon. Which, if the market doesn't come down quite a bit, then I'm definitely not going to get him still. But I guess maybe I'm giving too much credence to his whole thing about like I could pitch through it right now, but I want to stay
Yeah.
healthy, so I want to have more innings. So that's where I'm at right now. Here's the thing, probably still going to look at it in a situation like that and pick guys that are still around him more. So maybe maybe it's one of those things where it's like, you're not taking him there anyway. So why do you still have Rodon there? Because now he's next to Christian Javier, Framber Valdez, Zach Gallen. Those are the guys that he's around on my list. And I'll take all of them ahead of him right now. So he still won't win the tiebreakers against guys. So maybe it's not even worth having Rodon that high for me.
And I mean, here's what the way I'm looking at it, and the way I think you should look at it too. And so I'm going to try to sway you a little bit. So let's say, like, if he's back in 7 to 10 days, he's still not making the opening day roster, right? Like, so like max, like, even if he's totally fine, so let's say in 10 days he's fine, he goes to rehab assignment, gets built up, and makes his debut late April, right? You're looking at best 160 innings, like at best, if he then makes pretty much every turn in the rotation. There's also a pretty good chance that you see 0 innings from him this year. So split the difference, give him 80 innings. And where does 80 innings put him? It's probably going to put him outside of the top 80 starting pitchers.
Easily there. I mean, because I don't have Rodon as good on a per inning basis as you do. I had the park kind of hitting him for some homers. I know he's a lefty, so he can mitigate some of that. But I already had Rodon boosting up a bit, shifting back to the American League, coming over to the AL East, having a transition year anyway. So I already had him for a 3.28 ERA, which is still good, but obviously you throw in everything else and it's not looking good. Bottom line is, I think right now I wouldn't draft him. So maybe I just shouldn't have him that high in general.
Yeah.
Let's move
I
on.
just want to say, I think it does make Clarke Schmidt even more interesting as a late round pick, because he was battling Domingo Germán for a spot. I was more interested in Schmidt anyway, because I think there's more upside with him. We know he's going to start the year in the rotation now. And he'll be in the rotation until
Rodon and Cortez all dealing with stuff.
Right. And I think Cortez will start the year in the rotation, at least. It's trending like he might not be on the IL, but we know that Schmidt will probably at least get like 2, maybe 3 turns before like Rodon's potentially back.
Yeah.
And that gives him a little bit of leash to beat out Domingo Germán. And I am interested in what he's doing. His sinker sucked last year. He's throwing a cutter more this year. So like maybe he's kind of, getting rid of his worst pitch or using it less. So yeah, I think as a late round pick, Clarke Schmidt has more interest to me now than he did, 2 days ago.
I agree with some Clarke Schmidt love as well. Definitely like 15 teamers. That's the spot where I'm looking for him. If you're still doing DCs, definitely want to get in on him there. Let's talk some Dodger news. And we got some bad news over there too. This guy's like, you know what, Justin, you were talking about how you do these articles of like this year's so-and-so. And one of yours was this year's Adolis Garcia, the guy that the market is off on for the right reasons, but then all of a sudden they get burned because he ends up being good. Before this news, I feel like maybe Tony Gonsolin could have been that guy, because everyone's kind of afraid of him, really pushing him down, worried that he's going to get hit by the shift changes, et cetera. And yet it was like, okay, well, maybe that's too good of a price. Well, now here comes the injury, justifying all of it. So maybe he's not this year's Adolis Garcia, but he's unlikely to make opening day. Like I said, market was already cool on him. I don't know if you were as well, Justin. I'll start with you here. Where do you currently stand on Gonsolin, and did you adjust his rankings down as well?
I haven't yet, but I'm definitely gonna need to. Like I wasn't super high on him anyways. It's not as much the shift stuff and the defense behind him stuff that a lot of other people are concerned with. It's health for me. I mean, I know he's got an ankle injury right now, but he was having real issues with a forearm and elbow last year that limited towards the end of the season, and I just don't want to play with that. Ultimately, I think an ankle issue isn't going to be that big of a deal in the long term. Obviously, it's going to make sure he doesn't make the opening day rotation and starts on the IL, but I don't care that much about an ankle injury. As long as it's not an arm issue. My biggest issue for him is that he had this kind of elbow forearm soreness issue at the end of last year, and I just that kind of stuff is precursor to Tommy John, and I just don't want to mess with it. So he's already been off my board for the most part. Now he's completely off the board.
I would give more credence to an ankle, though. It is, let me see, I'm thinking about it. It would be his landing ankle there as his left ankle. Your base is very important for getting strength and everything too. So I wouldn't even say if it's going to keep him out this much, a left ankle sprain. Sprains are tears. Sprain makes it sound lesser than it is. I think what people forget, sprains are tears. So it's not a fracture, but it is a tear. That's not great. And I think there is, some heat to this if it's going to cost him that much time to where he's not going to make the opening day roster. Tony Gonsolin, like I said, was already somebody that the market was cool on. I don't really see any world where I'm getting him either. I sliced off 20 innings from him. He's down to 121 for me. That put him at 102. Starting pitcher or pitcher 102, including relievers. So I don't think I'm getting him anyway. I'm not too worried about it at this point. Eric, where do you come out with Tony Gonsolin right now after the ankle injury is going to keep him from making the opening day roster?
Yeah, I think what you said makes sense. Like I didn't see him throwing more than like 140 anyway. So if you're going to take starts away, you got to knock that down 120 at the top end. I had no problem with him before. I had no shares just because it didn't work out that way. But I wasn't like actively avoiding him. I think we all knew that the 2.14 ERA wasn't repeatable, and there was going to be some regression. And he's not a big strikeout pitcher, so you're going to get fine ratios and probably wins, but not 16 wins. So I don't have a problem with it. I think he's somebody if I was still doing a draft and hold, if he goes super, super late, like I might say, okay, 120 innings from a pitcher on a good team is still valuable to me. But yeah, I'm not really all that interested. I also think like the two guys battling for his spot are intriguing. Ryan Pepio and Michael Grove.
Yes.
They both look good. They both look good so far this spring. I think there's reasons to take a gamble on both in like 15-team leagues at the end of a draft because maybe they hold on to the spot. It's not like the Dodgers rotation is a picture of health other than Gonsolin, right? So if these young kids continue to pitch well, there's some value for them there. So I'm keeping an eye on Gonsolin. Like when he comes back and healthy, I think you could get a good stretch run from him where he's a valuable pick off the waiver wire in a 12-team league or something like that if people have totally moved on from him.
Yeah, I mean, Gonsolin can be good. I like Gonsolin as a pitcher. Just worried about this here as far as drafting him. I just don't like to invite early injury. Scott Pianowski talks about it all the time as a strategy to avoid, and I tend to agree with it. I don't really want guys that already have built-in missed time. Doesn't mean I won't take guys who are risks, that have elevated risk because of their injury history. But if you're already on the IL, you're already slated for the opening day IL, it's a low chance that I'm going to take you. And, obviously Buehler's out for the year with his TJ. Now Gonsolin does open the door for Pepio and Grove right now. And then Bobby Miller, Gavin Stoner, guys that are going to be in the high minors looking to make an impact during the year as well. So we talked about a lot on offense, how the Dodgers are going to have a bit of a youth movement this year. The whole team could have a bit of a youth movement. And given the depth of their system and the kind of talent that they churn out, I still think it could be a pretty damn good year. But it is really interesting that they're not as ironclad excellent as they have been in recent years. In fact, They're not going with the kid movement here with this other guy we want to talk about, but their outfield has been kind of up in the air, where they have considered some young guys, but they're also considering an oldie but goodie, a guy I cannot stop rooting for. I definitely hope that there is something to the swing change with Jason Heyward, and it's looking like the non-roster invite is going to make opening day. I believe he's off to a pretty solid start in spring. Jason or Justin, are you going to take Jason Heyward in any sort of league right now? I know you're done with DCs, which is obviously the easiest spot to
I'm
say.
not. I got one more DC to do.
Okay. So then you're not done with DCs, but I know that's the kind of the easy spot, but I want to put you to the test anyway. Don't worry about taking him in that league. Are you going to take him in a redraft with 7 reserves type of league like that?
No, I don't think in like even a 15 team.
What about an NL
league? I guess you can make him a
probably a reserve
pick. Yeah,
Jason Heyward's probably a reserve
I mean,
there.
here's the thing: like, do we really think Trace Thompson's the answer in center field?
No, and I've been saying that all offseason. And by the way, I'm not acting like I'm calling that over everyone else.
I've been with you. I didn't think they were going to be started with James Outman and Trace Thompson in the outfield.
Exactly. And Heyward can handle it with the glove. It's just a matter of can he get enough bat production.
Yeah, I mean, I think why not have them be kind of platoon partners in center, and Heyward getting the strong side and Trace Thompson getting the weak side of that platoon. So yeah, I mean, I think he's gonna be viable in NL only and in draft champions or DCs, draft and hold leagues. I mean, do I think that the Dodgers have turned back the clock and made him back into what we thought he might turn into? No, but I mean, in those kind of leagues, you need plate appearances.
But when was last? Don't look it up.
I'm gonna guess 2013.
I'm not. I can't count 2020. Jason Heyward. I'm sorry. He did have a 129 OPS plus that year. You either have to count 2019 if you think 100. League average is okay. 21.
No, you said good, not average.
But good, it'd be 2015. So you're actually kind of close. 13 homers, 23 steals, a 117 OPS plus for St. Louis for Jason Heyward. So yeah, I think that would be the last time that he was good. So it has been a while. Again, rooting for him. This is one where my heart is in it, but I still need to see more in spring before I'm diving in. He does have a couple homers, but he's 4 for 18. I don't want to parse all the spring numbers. Got a little bit of pop showing, but apparently there is a swing change. Does that get you interested at all in Jason Heyward here, Eric?
No.
Okay. I think that's fair. I don't know if we have to go any deeper than that. By the way, what do you think about Outman and some of those other guys, Ben?
So I actually, I had James Anderson on, my podcast, The Catcher's Corner, earlier this week, and James was actually pumping up James Outman.
Pumping up James.
Yeah, and so I think that Outman was good last year, very small sample size at the major league level. He's looked good in spring. So far, looked better than Heyward.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially if I like using the opponent quality on Baseball Reference, right?
Yes.
So Jason Heyward's opponent quality is 7.2, which is basically AA pitching, and he's hitting 222 with those 2 home runs, right? Now, Outman's opponent quality is 7.5, so it's the same, but he's hitting 400. He's got a home run. He's got a triple. He's got some good speed. He's I just find it a more interesting profile than Jason Heyward. Plus, I also looked this up when we were talking about him. He has a rock. He has a pet rock that he keeps in his locker that he calls Rocka, and he feeds it coffee before every game. And it is the weirdest thing that I have heard. And I don't know how you don't want to root for a guy.
I appreciate
that has a rock in his locker. He feeds coffee before every game. So
he's before his time. Their pet rocks were famous back in the 70s, I believe, and James Outman's trying to bring it back. So good for him on that one. He's definitely someone to watch. I like Andy Pages too, and he is on the 40. Johnny DeLuca is also on the 40. That's a guy that Eric Longenhanger brought him up when we were talking about the Dodgers as well. So they've got some guys. Heyward, obviously, we know the defense is ironclad. That's never really been in question. But if he's not offering enough bat, then I don't know if it's.
And that's the problem for Outman is with Heyward making the team and Chris Taylor there as well. Outman can't play center. And
Yeah.
so Trace Thompson's gonna have to make this team as either the main center fielder or the backup center fielder to Heyward.
And by the way, the 40 is full, so somebody will need to be booted for Heyward to get on.
Yeah. So, I don't see the path. There will be a path because, I mean, like I think Paul mentioned at the beginning of this topic, like this is an old team that has a lot of injury risk, and not just in the rotation, but in the field as well. We've already seen Gavin Lux, done for the season. And so, like, this will work itself out one way or another, but at least to start, like, I don't think Outman's on this team.
I wonder if
that's the clarifying point. I didn't mean like from the start. I just I think Outman is more I find Outman more interesting for the season. Like
I've been taking him in DCs all off season.
Also, Trace Thompson is 32, which I also didn't realize. Right, so it's not like he's a young guy they need to get innings for too. Like if he struggles the first few weeks, month out of the gate, like they could just decide, listen, this isn't a thing anymore, and then maybe they flip it. With Outman, he gets, Thompson gets DFA'd. Who knows? Like Justin said, there's so many pathways for it. I just can't see the Dodgers, given where they want to be at the end of the year, really rolling out Jason Heyward or Trace Thompson for more than like a month at the beginning of the season.
Well, and David Peralta is also on the 40 and penciled in as the strong side left fielder. I think that's where Heyward's spot could come from because Peralta's not having a good spring. And if that continues, I think that they just DFA Peralta and Heyward takes that spot.
Yeah.
So it is interesting the old and young combinations of this team here with the Dodgers. There could be some really young. There can really be some young guys who make impacts though. Speaking of old, Miami is on some bullshit. I don't even know what they're up to. They signed José Iglesias and Yuli Gurriel to minor league deals. Guys, I don't really want to talk about those two of you. Want to give a passing thought on Yuli Gurriel because he's been a good hitter in the past? Sure. But what I'm curious about is what this does because they now have a roster crunch. And I'm wondering who's the odd man out. There's been some Brian De La Cruz love coming into the year, which I totally understand. Jesus Sanchez still has his believers. He's out of options. De La Cruz is not. Obviously, the guys like Soler and Avisel Garcia, they're out of options. Where does everyone fit here on this ball club? Or does one of Iglesias or Gurriel actually start the season in the minors, and that's how it's resolved? Eric, let's start with you. What's up with this roster crunch in Miami? What the heck are they doing?
Well, I can't answer what the heck they're doing because I have no idea. And we joked about it when we did the Potapalooza about what were they doing in the middle infield with Wendell and Arias, and I think they maybe realized that also, and they went out and got Iglesias because at least he can play good defensive shortstop.
Yeah.
Behind a staff that has some heavy ground ball pitchers. Listen, I don't know how much you want to put stock in spring results. We try not to. Jesus Sanchez is outplaying Brian De La Cruz so far. Jesus Sanchez has no options. Brian De La Cruz has 2 options left.
Yep.
So there's an easy avenue to just say, okay, Brian De La Cruz is going to start the year in AAA. Jesus Sanchez is going to start the year up, and we're good. But I don't really know that you do that with somebody who showed, in over 115 major league games last year, like De La Cruz did, that he can handle, he can handle a job.
Exactly. And what's he proven in the minors anymore?
Right. So I think the most realistic option is they try to use Jesus Sanchez's solid spring to move him.
That could be the avenue.
And that's intriguing to me because he's only 25 years old, Jesus Sanchez. Like he's not done, right? There are some issues in his approach. There's some issues with the swing and miss. Like we all know that, but we're just talking about a career renaissance for a 33-year-old Jason Heyward. Like we can't get a new and improved swing from a 25-year-old Jesus Sanchez, depending on where he ends up. So I think that's probably the most realistic pathway is that he moves. And then you're back to like, okay, so now if Brian De La Cruz isn't platooning with Jesus Sanchez, like maybe he's now, we talked about this before we started recording, now he's splitting at bats with like Garrett Cooper, who gets pushed off of first base. Well, Cooper's a righty. So you're now talking about Brian De La Cruz not splitting at bats with Jesus Sanchez, who hits lefty. But you're talking about a right-handed guy. So you don't have to worry about like strong side, weak side, and I think it makes Brian De La Cruz a little safer actually.
It would be wild for a team so desperate for offense to be trading Jesus Sanchez, but they've put themselves in this bind with the Avisail Garcia and Jorge Soler signings. And maybe this is why you don't make both of those signings, right? Because they're kind of overlap anyway. They kind of do a lot of the same stuff. And you knew you had a bunch of young outfielders. So did you really have to go for both?
There's got to be, I think Eric's right. Like, there's got to be a trade on the cusp. And what team right now could use an outfielder, maybe a center fielder because of an injury, and a starting pitcher, which the Miami Marlins have an extra one of and been trying to trade a lefty? How about the team we started this episode with, the New York Yankees?
Oh, yeah.
Lost,
but also the Dodgers, the team that we just talked about too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, go ahead with Bader getting hurt.
Yeah, Bader getting hurt. They need a lefty to add to that rotation. Trevor Rogers has been kind of on the block all season. What about like a Brian De La Cruz or a Jesus Sanchez and a Trevor Rogers deal to the Yankees? Would make a lot of sense and kind of clear up.
For whomst do they get though?
Oh, some prospect that the Yankees.
Well, Yankee fans are itching to move Gleyber Torres to have second base open for Volpe, but that obviously doesn't fit.
I think Volpe is going to make the opening roster. Shortstop. Yeah.
No, Peraza.
No,
it's gonna be Peraza.
Peraza. I saw somebody say that. I think it was Peter Gammon said that he thought that Volpe was going to make the opening day as a shortstop, but he hasn't started at shortstop.
No,
Peraza started at shortstop like 75% of the time, and Volpe started a couple of games at short, and then mostly at second.
There's nothing to suggest that Volpe is ahead of Peraza. Peraza's on the 40. Volpe's not. I don't really, outside of injury to clear a path, I don't see any way that Volpe makes the roster right now. I don't see it.
Volpe's starting regularly at second base this spring, and Oswald Peraza starting regularly at shortstop. So I don't see a way that Volpe makes the team as a shortstop if he's getting innings at second base the majority of the time. To me, that's like a little bit of malpractice to put a prospect in as your starting shortstop without giving him all the innings at short, and you give all the innings at short to the other prospect that you
exactly. And Peraza can pick short. I think Peraza is a better defender, and like he's their best defender. And Eric Longenhagen was saying the same thing about Peraza's glove there too. And I know appeal to authority there, but I agree. So when he co-signs what I say,
the last two games with that Volpe has played, March 6th and March 4th. He was the starting shortstop.
Yeah, but
he started at second. He started at second yesterday, and Peraza started at short.
Yeah, get smoked, Justin. What are you looking at? You're citing some pretty old games, by the way.
No, those are early this week. Literally
yesterday, Volpe 0 for 3 at second base, and Peraza 1 for 3 at short.
I was looking at Wednesday. I lost my days apparently.
But anyway, I don't really see Peraza or Volpe making the roster right now. And like as far as Gleyber, the Yankees do want Gleyber traded. Yankees fans do, I should say. That doesn't really fit the Marlins right now because they're jammed up the middle.
Yeah.
So it would have to be a prospect. I don't know if there's a fit there, but they got to figure out something. And I don't know what's up with these Iglesias and Gurriel deals, but we got to get into some ADP differences here between NFBC, the standard drafts. Is this DCs or OCs? Justin?
They're DCs. DCs over the last month.
DCs over the last month compared to TGFBI. First things first, SP's not rising yet. And we say yet because we still think that that's going to happen. That is normally more of a main event thing where you see the SPs rise up. Maybe the safety and security, I put that in quotes, I guess, because you never know with pitchers, of kind of seeing your guys make it through spring too, because these drafts happen later in the season. That's when people start to say, I'm taking my shot on my pitcher here. I got to get my 200 innings or my perceived 200 innings. Do you still believe that rise will happen, Justin, later in main event season?
I mean, I think it will to some extent, especially because we're going to see more issues like Rodón go down. I mean, we've already lost Tyler Glass now for a little while. There'll be other guys that just fall off, get Tommy John or have oblique injuries or whatever.
You're right.
And that will just naturally push other guys. I do wonder if the rise is not going to be as large as it has been in the past. And that's just because the overall depth of the starting pitching pool, especially like the top 50, the quality of the top 50 is so good this year.
It's been good before, though. Has anyone done a comparison before to previous years of how SPs rise during the year? Because we talk about this, and then when I think we kind of blank out what happened the previous, because I don't know either, by the way. I don't have the answer, but I wonder if anyone has the data.
I have the data from the last 3 years because I've done the ADP market reports. So
yeah, so can you see how it's going?
I'm gonna update the ADP market reports probably starting today, and I will take a look and see if the rise has been less drastic or less slow this year than it has been.
And when does it really jump? Is it really main event season that things happen like that? What about you specifically? Are you going to be pressing starters up later and when you get in your main event? Because you're going to do at least one, maybe two.
Yeah.
Are you going to push SPs up to where you want to get your security, or do you take advantage of other people doing it and you stock up some more hitters?
I think I'm going to do whatever the market doesn't. If the market doesn't start rising these guys, then maybe I will just to be a little bit different. If the market does begin to rise up these guys, I'll probably just go, you know what, I trust the depth of the pool and my knowledge of the pool. For the most part in my draft so far this year, I've not been taking starting pitching very high. I've been, usually starting off drafts with 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 or 5 hitters before I even take my first one, even in 15-team leagues. So I don't mind going that way, and that's been my preferred way to go. But if the market isn't going to value, especially guys like Corbin Burns and Garrett Cole, as highly as they should, then I'm going to take a back-end pick, and I have no problem snagging one of them.
I think that's fair to, kind of play it where you can zag against the rest of the market. Eric, how do you play starters throughout draft season? Do you start to raise them later? Because again, that's a bit of a market trend at the NFBC. Do you stick to your same policies no matter what? Are you an early SP type of guy? Well, how do you do it with early starting pitchers?
So I raised them last year in response, and I hated that I did it because my whole thing going in was that I felt like I understood the pitching landscape well enough that I could snag a guy early, like an ace, quote unquote, early, that I felt like was a good foundation block for my team. And then I can, wait and get some interesting pitchers that I liked later. And then when I saw everything rise up, I kind of was like, oh, what if I miss, blah, blah, blah. And I started taking pitching more early, and some of those guys didn't really hit for me. And I felt like I moved away from what I was confident in my own strategy. So I'm not going to do that this year. I'm still pretty confident where, I take one starting pitcher, let's call it in the first 3 or 4 rounds. Depends on how the board falls, like in TGFBI, I waited until the 4th round.
I got top 2.
I got Wheeler. Yeah, I waited.
You cut out there.
Wheeler.
You got Wheeler. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, it just cut out. I wanted to make sure that people heard that you got Wheeler.
Yeah, and then I double tapped later, and I got Severino and Kirby for my 2-3, and I feel pretty good about that top 3. So I kind of feel like that's how I'll keep playing things. Is I'll react to the board and see, but like there's a lot of guys that I feel okay having as my quote unquote ace that are going super late. And I also read something interesting. Jordan Rosenblum, who writes for Prospects Live, compared the projected inning or looked at the starting pitchers who were on Jeff Zimmerman's model for like top 10 safest arms last year and top 10 riskiest arms. And he, while mentioning that Jeff's model is still like the best possible one that we have right now, that the top 10 safest arms averaged 141 innings last year, and the top 10 riskiest arms averaged 143 innings last year. So we still don't really know what the hell we're talking about with evaluating injury risk pitchers. So like that's where a guy like Severino is dropping down people's boards because he's a quote unquote injury risk. And sometimes that'll play out, like Glasnow getting hurt in the spring, but sometimes it won't, like Carlos Rodón for the last 2 years where he had fully healthy years. So I think I'm just gonna lean in on some of those guys, in like round 6, 7, 8, where I just feel like I'll take that gamble.
It's almost as if somebody on this podcast says that pitcher safety is a myth. Wow, crazy how that works out.
But I mean, obviously, pitcher safety is a myth, but
then stop citing it because you do it all the time.
Yes, because but we can't go into a draft thinking that every single pitcher has the same injury risk.
But they kind of do. It's not 100% equal, and I don't say that. I do still understand that, like a Chris Sale and a Carlos Rodón, I get that they have a heightened risk because of their recent injury history. It's always the guys who are perceived safe. I disagree with that. No, they're not. They're not that much safer than the injury guys. It's about the degree, right? Where the perception is that the quote unquote safe guys are up here and the risky guys are down here. I have it more like this, and I stand firm that it's like that. And those numbers kind of bear that out. That's all I'm saying.
I'd like to see those numbers over the course of years, and if like last year was
what makes you think it would be different? What about pitching makes you think it would be different? I
think last year there were some guys with some pretty severe I don't know if Eric has the article up and can tell us who was on the top 10 of guys who were risky and but like Justin Verlander, who was probably at the top of that list, like dude's a unicorn. Like it just like I mean I don't think anybody should have expected him to like throw as many innings as he did in 2022.
Okay, but then Carlos Rodón did too.
Yeah.
A guy who is perceived as
caught up
risky,
to him a little bit later. Yeah,
and he got 178 innings, right? So it's like
I think the big thing is if you have an actual concern, like I think there's a difference between going like, for instance, like I think Max Scherzer a really good example this year. Like I don't think Max Scherzer has any greater risk than just about any other pitcher this year. He's not coming in with an injury. He's healthy right now. He looks good on the mound, right? But other people would say he's a bigger injury risk because of age or because of whatever. But a guy like Carlos Rodón now, like he has a markedly bigger risk than any other or than the average starting pitcher at this moment.
Well, yeah, because of his history, and now he's
already
hurt.
Yeah, he's
absolutely. And I do agree that even before this, Rodón had a bit of a higher risk because of his health profile.
Yeah,
it's just that you really shouldn't be fooling yourselves into believing that there's safety out there. That's the part that I'm always going to push.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I don't think there's anything. I don't think there is any sort of safe starting pitcher by any stretch of the imagination. Everybody
cited guys as such.
I think relative to other guys, yeah. I mean, I think you can trust Sandy Alcantara to throw more innings than we expect Tyler Glasnow, even prior to the oblique thing, to throw. And so when people were in,
I think that's less because of health, though, and more because of track record of what Sandy's.
It's a track record of health. Like the reason Tyler Glasnow is not throwing these innings is because
no, because there's other guys that have been healthy that don't get to throw 228.
Okay, Corbin Burns over Tyler Glasnow, or
No. It'd be more of it'd be more of Sandy Alcantara versus Corbin Burns, is what I'm saying. Like Sandy Alcantara has been like a league leader in innings. He's expected to throw more. You expect him to throw more than even Corbin Burns, and Corbin Burns doesn't have major injury risk.
Yeah, sure. But
that's what I'm saying there.
All right. Well, let's. We don't have enough
time. We got to go. Let's talk about some guys that TGFBI is higher on. And we know this first one. We have some reasons for some of these because things have changed with these guys, but especially with Jordan Walker. And I just want to say, Matt Thompson out front on this one early. Pass that message along to you. You started passing that message along to our listeners. So people were listening and bought in and believed that they have the Jordan Walker discounts out there that maybe aren't being so plentiful anymore, because he was 214 in DCs for the last month. He's 182 in TGFBI. Eric, are you buying in on Jordan Walker as somebody who's going to break camp and thus should be a top 200 pick?
Yeah, top 200, sure, yes. He's going a lot earlier if you just look at like the last week of drafts. But yeah, the top 200, I'd buy in. I think he's pushing up like around near 100 in some drafts recently. And so like I have no shares, and it's not because I don't want them. It's just because I have not been able. I'm not jumping as high as people have been jumping recently. I think there will be some, there will be some bumps along the way. But I'm fully invested. I'm fully bought in, and I think if you have an opportunity to get him, you should go for it. If you're looking at like RotoWire online championship drafts since March 1st,
that's
what I was looking drafts. He's going 127.
Jordan Walker.
I can't do that at that price.
His min is 85 in that in those drafts there.
Well, wait, let me ask you: if he was announced on the opening day roster, could you do that price?
No.
Okay, then we have a discussion about what we think his true talent level is.
Well, I think I don't know even if it's what we think his true talent level is. I think you're talking about a cost right now, which is right around like Chris Bryant, Carlos Correa, Rhys Hoskins, Anthony Santander, Christian Walker. Like depending on where you want to build, how you need to build your lineup, you're talking about like established major league veterans with a track record of success that are locked into at bats. And you guys have mentioned this all the time with the Cardinals outfield. Like there are a lot of guys there. Yeah, and Walker is going to get a shot for sure, and I think he has the talent to be a really good player, potentially great player like for his career. But I know everybody is doing this like, oh, he's rising in the spring, so he's going to have like a Julio Rodriguez type of year, which I think that's a false equivalence, right? Like what Julio Rodriguez did last year was pretty exceptional and pretty rare for a rookie to put up the type of season he did. So I think if Walker struggles, not that they'll send him down, but like I could easily see if they depending on how much he struggles. But I could easily see rest days here and there, getting Carlson in the lineup, getting Tyler O'Neill, however that kind of balances out.
If Walker's going to start, shut up, Justin.
If Walker's on this team, I don't think Carlson is.
Yes. Oh, yes, he is. Dylan Carlson is not going to the minors. That's been one of the craziest things that you've said this year.
I just think I would rather take the safety and security of some of these hitters going in the range that he's going in versus the total unknown of Jordan Walker and what we're going to get from a full season. And I do wonder, like, there's no way of knowing this, but if he's outfield eligible on NFBC, not third base eligible, is he going up as high as he's going? Are people using him as that like position scarcity thing in addition to the prospect type? And now it's all piling on.
I think you're dead on to something there, because that has to be at least a bit of it with Jordan Walker. He'll add that outfield eligibility, but I don't even think that's what people are drawn toward. They're drawn toward the fact that he's third base, and we've talked about third base, how it has those drop-offs. He's now Jordan Walker behind Gunnar Henderson, ahead of Max Muncy in that sample that we talked about the March at RotoWire Online Championships. That's 19 drafts. At pick 130, he's right there ahead of Max Muncy. I'm still on Max Muncy, but I do like Jordan Walker. I'm in. He's having the big spring. I do believe in him. I got the jump thanks to Matt Thompson and Justin passing along the Matt Thompson info there that suggested that he was going to break camp and had a very, very, very good shot to do so. Justin, it sounds like you're pretty much in as well. Are you in at this price though, or is this a guy that you've done your thing before where you love a guy in the fall, in the winter, but then come spring when everyone else is in, you pull back? Are you going to stay in on just Jordan Walker and still get some shares?
Yeah, I mean, I'll stay in until they announce him on the opening day roster. Like once they announce him on the opening day roster and he starts going in the 4th, 5th rounds, I will not be paying that price.
Why? Do you not believe in the talent?
I absolutely believe in the talent, but then you're taking him over guys who have just the same amount of talent as him. but have been established as we know they can do that in the major league level. But I think the false equivalency with a guy like Julio Rodriguez is the fact that Walker's not going to run like Julio Rodriguez can. And that was one of the things that propelled, J-Rod's kind of upside.
That's true. He is a sneaky runner. I will say.
Yeah, he's not like a slow dude. Like he's not a dude who's not going to run, but like you're not getting 25, 30 stolen bases from the guy.
Right.
He stole 22 last year at Double A. I'm not saying he's going to do that. I'm not saying Jordan Walker's going to do that.
But I mean, if he's up, he's up. Like they're not bringing him up to like, hey, you're going to get 3 days off a week. Like he's up to play. He's going to play every day and either prove that he can hit at the major league level like he's hit everywhere else, or that maybe he's not ready, needs to go back down. I have no problem with the price. I haven't taken him that high. I haven't needed to take him as that high. And luckily for me, only like 2 of my remaining 4 drafts are actual snake drafts. So I can, I've got a lot of auctions coming up where I can, kind of dictate whether I'm okay or not with the market price. But yeah, I mean, I think he's up day one, and I think he is very good day one. And I have no problem taking him in the top 150 picks, though I haven't needed to. Even TGFBI, like I got him like 220 something.
220 for Jordan Walker. That's a pretty good price there. Dylan Carlson, by the way, 932 OPS in spring. Just saying. Again, but obviously I like Dylan Carlson. I'm not just doing like a meme about like, because I like him. I do not see a world where he gets sent down. It's Juan Yepez who is going to take the hit there. I firmly believe that. Not even because I'm out on Yepez and think he sucks. I just don't think you put the DH only guy in the minors.
Here, I mean, this is another team that needs to trade guys. Like, I mean,
true.
Like, what is Nolan Gorman doing? Miami. Like, what is
they could get a pitcher.
Hey, Dylan Carlson to the Yankees. Dylan Carlson.
No. Dylan Carlson to. Well, I know it wouldn't help Miami, but they do still need a hitter. So I know we're not helping them by like
Nolan Gorman to Miami.
The Gorman one that you said, I still am in on that. Gorman for Rogers is still intriguing to me, but we do have to move if we're going to get to the rest of this rundown here. So I will try to keep us in order. Sean Manaea, Adam Velo. Justin, I'm going to start with you on this one because this is your favorite team. Over there on the Giants, they're pumping some extra velo into Sean Manaea. You buying it and buying this ADP rise. 292 in DCs, 263 in TGFBI. Where do you stand on Sean Manaea? Pumping 98.
As long as he doesn't get inside like the top 200, like I think that's still a really, really fair ADP and well worth the gamble. I still have super huge concerns about the defense behind him. In the outfield, in the infield. I talked about this on the RotoWire Sirius show yesterday because Jeff was all like, I'm really excited about Alex Cobb. I'm really excited about this guy. And I'm like, don't be excited about anybody because that defense was the worst in baseball last year and got worse in the offseason.
So bad.
Manaea has strikeout outside with that velo. So I'm definitely willing to take the gamble, especially at 260. Like, even if it gets to like 230, like, I don't think that is a price you worry about paying with the potential upside, because when his mechanics are right and you add this velo in, he could turn into a monster.
And maybe Sean Manaea gets enough strikeouts to mitigate some of that defensive impact. Eric, where do you stand on Sean Manaea and his velo boost? He did struggle in his second outing, so we got all excited about the first outing. He struggled in the second, but I believe that the velo was still strong, which is all we really care about there as far as spring training performance. So where you at on Manaea?
Yeah, I'm in. I just think that the two things that work for me are you have an organization with a track record of making improvements with pitchers, getting the most out of pitchers, and you have a pitcher with a track record of performing markedly better at higher velocity in his career. And so those two things are working in favor of saying you're going to get a good version of Sean Manaea this year. Now, I think you're going to get a good version of Sean Manaea. They're not turning Sean Manaea into last year's Carlos Rodón. You're not going to get like some massive spike. But, if you're taking him around pick 250, like, to me, that's really great value. And I am in on that.
Yeah, totally agree there. We're going to skip Peraza because we did talk kind of about him. I just think he's going to break camp. 293 to 268. He is jumping up. He's going to break camp. He's their shortstop. Let's go to Gabriel Moreno. Yeah, draft Oswald Peraza. I'm definitely in on that. Let's go to Gabriel Moreno, though. Arizona's catcher. I don't know if he's going to be a starting catcher. He is a catcher for Arizona. Eric, let's start with you on Moreno. He's going from 248 in the DCs to 227 in TGFBI. So just a little bit of a jump there. But the dude can hit. And like he kind of looks like a baby Kirk. And we saw how great things could go with Kirk when he was going. And I don't worry that much that he's not slotted in as the starting catcher. Carson Kelly likely is, because I think they can bounce him around a little bit. He's played other spots. I just wrote up an article yesterday, 3 breakout catchers that included Moreno and another guy we're going to talk about, because he could play some DH, maybe push out his teammate that came along with him in that deal, Lourdes Gurriel Jr. here and there, maybe play a little bit of first base, spell Christian Walker for a day here and there. Not that Christian Walker is going to lose massive time, maybe even get an outfield bid here and there. Like he can bounce around because Gabriel Moreno's bat is so good. I think they got to find a way to get it in. Are you interested in Gabriel Moreno right now in 2 catcher formats? Because I think that's really the only spot that he's viable right now, unless he does take that job from Kelly.
Not at this cost, no.
Okay.
You're going to get a plus batting average with absolutely no power, hitting near the bottom of a mediocre lineup. So
that's the part I disagree with. It's
it's not a mediocre.
I also disagree with the power.
You don't think?
I love the baby snakes.
Okay, a fine lineup.
A good lineup.
Can we say fine?
I'm gonna say it's good.
I guess it depends on like what level of belief you have in JD. I think the Josh Rojas thing is done.
Josh Rojas does suck. Tell Justin.
Dare you?
Tell Justin. Josh Rojas does. That is true. Listen, Alex Chamberlain.
I believe in a Kendall Marte bounce back. I believe in Corbin Carroll. I like Christian Walker. So there are pieces that I like there. So
solid.
Who knows?
I'll say solid.
I'd say okay, fine. We'll go solid lineup, but he's going to hit toward the bottom. He has not really shown much power in the minor leagues. James Anderson talked about how he also doesn't believe in the power. And again, I try to lean on prospect guys when I have the opportunity, because even if I think I'm knowledgeable of these, top 100 prospects, I don't sit and watch the film as much as these guys do.
Absolutely.
And then, I don't think Carson Kelly is going anywhere. And I might be biased here. I mentioned this before. Like I talked in the offseason to Stephen Vogt, who was a catcher for the Diamondbacks before, and maybe I'm putting too much stock in what he was saying. Vogt says that they love Carson Kelly, the way he his work ethic, just the professionalism. And then another thing that Vogt mentioned that I think is something interesting to keep in mind when you're looking at battles like this between rookie catchers and established veterans is that the pitch clock is really going to force teams to rely on catchers who are really well prepared, because the catchers need to game plan. They need to know how to attack opposing hitters, and they need to be able to make those decisions on what pitch they're throwing and what count and what situation immediately, because they don't have the time to go back and forth and shake off and then go out and do a mound visit and then talk through all of that. So I really do think that there's going to be a little bit more reliance, especially early in the year, on these veteran catchers as opposed to these new catchers who don't have the relationship with the pitchers, who maybe don't really know how to game plan at a major league level and now have to do it in a really sped up game environment. So I think that it's going to be a pretty even split, at least at the beginning of the year, until maybe Moreno carves out a bigger role. But I just think you can get another catcher in a 2-team league later who might be able to give you equal to what Moreno's giving you, at least early in the year.
I don't even think it's going to be an even split. I think where Moreno can benefit is playing other spots, and that's what I like about him. I think he's a good enough hitter that he can play some other spots because the.
Can I ask, if you like the lineup so much, though, who's he pushing out?
I just mentioned all the guys. First off, I love Gurriel, but I don't think he's so locked in that he can't.
It's good. Yeah, it would be Gurriel. Alec Thomas is having a really good spring. I think he makes.
Alec Thomas is going to make the team. We were wrong about that, and I got roster resourced a little bit, and I'm not shitting on Jason, but Jason Martinez, who runs it. When I see it, you get anchored to the thinking there. And we talked about how is there a spot for
He's back in there. He's back in their lineup now.
We put him back in there because I think he realizes that he's the best center fielder on the ball club. That's another thing that I got from Eric Longenhagen that said, oh, he's the center fielder. He is making this team as the center fielder. I also think that a fanboy that people that have been fanboy of, Jake McCarthy, I think he could lose some playing time incidentally there too, with Gurriel going to the outfield, McCarthy sitting, and Moreno getting in that way. So I think and like I said, maybe one day for Walker here and there for Christian Walker. Not that he's going to lose a bunch of time, but just to get Moreno's bat in, because I do think it is a quality bat. But I agree with you. Kelly is I think he's the dude, and it's a 2 time a week maybe for Moreno to start at catcher, but it's going to be the DH avenue that's going to help him get some extra time. Let's go to the other catcher, because you did mention a great point there about catchers who need to be prepared with the pitch clock and everything. Logan O'Hoppe moved up in TGFBI. Now, I've had an interesting offseason with him. I loved him when I saw him at Fall League back in 21. And he was on my short-term radar, or my long-term radar for that, but he was behind JT Realmuto. Then he gets traded to the Angels, and I put him back up on my radar because now there's a path. But then I started to get cold feet because I saw all this talk about Matt Theis being out of options, and maybe he was going to take the backup role with Max Stassi being the starter and push O'Hoppe down to the minors. Well, now I'm coming back around because O'Hoppe is playing more as the starter in spring, and I think he's got the stuff to be a young catcher who is prepared, who can handle the major leagues. And I think now he has a great shot to break camp. So I'm kind of back in on O'Hoppe here as a C2. I think he's got the power. I think he's got the defense to do it. And I wrote this in the article too, because he was the other breakout catcher that I had. Phil Nevin tried to make sure that we don't read too much into him. O'Hoppe consistently catching Shohei Ohtani before he left for the WBC. But I want to read into it because I feel like they're trying to get him comfortable with the best pitcher on the team so that he's ready to go when they have him up on opening day. Justin, where do you stand on Logan O'Hoppe? Because I believe you've been in on him as well. But like I said, I've been kind of vacillating between in and out with him, and now I'm back in. You're not in. You're shaking.
I'm not in. I have not been in. I still maintain he does not make the opening day roster. I think Stassi's definitely making this opening roster.
Stassi is. It's Theis.
Theis is out of options, and he's hitting like 350 in spring. I don't think they want to DFA him. So I think that O'Hoppe does not really
catch. I think that's the question, because I was there. Like I said, I was there. It's 4 for 11 for Theis to relax on this, but he does have a 1078 OPS. But can he actually catch? Is the real question there. I don't know.
I don't think they're gonna put 3 catchers on the roster. I don't think they want to lose Theis. I'm
saying Theis ain't a catcher.
They're going to have to. Who's the odd man out?
I know. I'm seeing it.
It's Brett Phillips is going to make this team as the 4th outfielder.
There's no backup outfielder.
Giro Shula they traded for. Luz Rengifo. They've got.
You know what it's going to be?
Jared Walsh is playing. Unless there's an injury that we don't know about.
No, we don't know. It's not that we don't know about it. It's that it's going to happen. But you shouldn't draft things based on future injury. I grant that. So I'm not saying go crazy for O'Hoppe. I don't know, man.
Don't draft him.
I think the talent wins.
Unless you're getting him late. The problem is the rise, right? If you were getting him with your last pick in a draft, then you go, hey, if he doesn't make the roster, then I drop him. But now you're getting to the point where there's actual draft capital involved. I don't think you can draft him.
Yeah, I mean, I did like him better when O'Hoppe was cheap, even though that was when I was kind of off of him, though, with the Theis rumors there. So maybe I should just stick with my concerns about him. But I love the talent. I'd be careful drafting him too. I wouldn't be going crazy because I'm seeing right now at the online championship during March, he's going ahead of Moreno, which I'm definitely not doing that. I liked him more when he was going around like Bo Naylor. And another young guy that might not make the team type of deal. Endy Rodriguez, another young guy that might not make the team. But with the rise, I agree. I am a little bit cautious.
I'm just curious to both of you. We're talking about, waiting. So O'Hoppe and Moreno, you mentioned in the OCs are going 231 and 232 back to back. Would you take either one over waiting to pick? Where is it? Waiting till 276 for Yasmani Grandal.
Oh, I do like Grandal.
I'll take Grandal straight up over both. Yeah,
exactly.
I'll take Moreno.
And I can wait over 40 picks to do it if I want.
Yeah.
Jonah Heim is in the mid 260s.
Jonah Heim
straight up. Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
even Christian
I'm not
Vasquez,
drafting
who I don't
either
think
of
is
these
great,
catchers.
is
Yeah.
late 200s. Like they're catchers in a 2-catcher league. I think they're catchers who get forgotten about and are in the back end of the 200s, early 300s, who are going to give you most likely more at bats, and possibly more, value when you're talking about counting stats then too. So I'm just going to wait rather than buy the rookie hype on these two guys.
I think that's fair. Rookie catchers have never been an avenue that I'm super hot on, which is funny that I wrote a breakout article that included 2 rookie catchers. But again, with O'Hoppe, I'm even writing an addendum to that article that I'm not as in on this price jump here. I liked him more when he was cheap, but now that people are jumping in, I'm peeling back. Justin, what kind of time do you have here? Can we do the lower ones, or we got to call it?
If we do a real speed round.
All right, I'm going to do each of you get a comment on these, and then we go. So I'll start with Justin. TGFBI is lower on these guys. Kendall, Graveman, 264 to 293. I think it's just because Raylo is probably going to be the lion's share. What do you think about Kendall Graveman? Are you still, because you liked him, you still drafting him?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the Reynaldo Lopez hype train going kind of just a little bit too crazy. This is going to be a straight committee. I probably don't want any piece out of this bullpen.
Okay, well, you were drafting Graveman, so
yeah, I've at this point I've stopped, and like I don't want to play with this. This is going to be changing hands a bunch, I think.
Okay, Eric, Garrett Whitlock is moving down compared to the DCs from 278 to 299. Do you think he gets a starting spot? And if so, are you interested?
Yes, and I took him in TGFBI too. So I'm interested. I think he gets a starting spot. I think he's gonna, he'll miss a couple starts at the beginning of the year. So I think factor that into your innings projections. But I think that he is a really talented pitcher. I think that, he has started he has a minor league track record of, a decent amount of innings as a starter. So it's not full. He's not a full bullpen guy. He wasn't always a bullpen guy. I think it's important for people to realize. So I think he's locked into that rotation when healthy. And I think that he is worth a look, especially going in the late 200s right now. And also I am in on Reynaldo Lopez. Not
I'm in on Raylo too. I totally agree with you there. Justin, your boy Jorge Mateo is experiencing a drop from 237 to 257. Are you buying back in here? This is a guy that you're on deck, by the way. I don't really want. I didn't want to pay full price for him. Price is coming down. It's still a little higher than I want. He's been dreadful in spring. Where are you at on Jorge Mateo after last year's breakout?
I still think he plays every day starting out. Like I don't know that he's like at a set position, but I think he's just going to play every day. Like it's not Ramon Urias has been awful too in spring. So and I just think that Mateo's ability to kind of play all over the place wins out here, and the fact that he had a really good season last year. So I'm probably not drafting either.
He had a good fantasy season last year. He still had like 267 OBP. That is fucking horrendous.
Yeah, but like he's still a very good defensive player as well. So
that's all he is. Don't say also as if he's a terrible hitter. You're
a terrible hitter.
I am, but I'm probably as good as Jorge Mateo.
That's
the thing.
You?
Yeah, he sucks at hitting. I'm sorry. It's just the stone cold truth. You couldn't get me to pay for him this year. You're looking for the next Jorge Mateo. You don't buy a guy like this at full price.
And then that's the thing. Like I'm probably still not drafting him anywhere, but like I do think he plays every day.
And I say that as part of a duo that's been hyping him since his New York days. We've both loved him, but now that he's done something and the fantasy market's kind of interested, even with this price drop, I'm out. And we'll close it off with you, Eric. Daniel Bard is dropping 126 to 145. Is this just TGFBI that the closers don't have to go up as much because you're not with DC's closers are drafted differently? So I think that's probably the reason for the change. But where do you stand on Daniel Bard? He had the great year last year, but it's still Colorado. He's 100 years old. Are you even taking Daniel Bard as one of your closers? Because that's a pretty high price at pick 145.
Yeah, he'd have to drop more. I think the drop is for reasons that you mentioned, and also that he had a really bad outing in the spring and got roughed up. And I think people reacted. A couple days ago, he pitched again and did fine. But you're just in time about you're drafting the next Jorge Mateo, like you're in the next breakout. You should be drafting the next Daniel Bard, not drafting Daniel Bard after he had a sub-2 ERA and popped 34 saves. You're not going to get that. Will I draft him if he really falls? Sure, because he's still the closer in Colorado, and I think he'll be fine. But I'm not drafting him at this price. And in fact, you drafted the next Daniel Bard from me because Greg Jewett has been saying the last week that Michael Fulmer is the next
And
Daniel
that's
Bard.
why I took him.
And I
Reliever recon, baby.
I wanted it, and I waited, and I was like, all right, I've got that reliever recon inside info since I write with them, and I'll wait, and I waited too long, and you took him from me. So yeah, I'll just wait and draft Michael Fulmer, and I won't draft Daniel Bard.
Full agree there. Michael Fulmer with the Cubs working on that sweeper reliever recon. It's the best money that you will spend on fantasy content. And that includes our Patreon, which I do think you should sign up for. Justin's doing an amazing job with the Patreon, getting the listener league situated. Love all that, but I'll put that second to reliever recon because the information is unbelievable. They are also pumping the Raylo train, which I love. Justin's not as keen on that, but Eric and I are. But Eric, thank you so much for coming on and hanging out with us. It's great talking with you. It's fun being in a draft with you. Where can people find your stuff with your pod and your Twitter?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Always love talking baseball with you guys. You can find me on Twitter at SamskiNYC. I post a lot of just like regular baseball stuff on there, and then I do content for Rotoballer. So you can find my work there. I'm starting my yearly series that I do, which is called Pitchers with New Pitches and Should We Care, where I look at pitchers who are throwing new pitches, but break down whether it's actually beneficial for them or not. So that'll start up here next week, and I'm doing a lot of preseason content. And then you can find my podcast, The Catcher's Corner, available where all podcasts are available. So check that out on Apple, Spotify, all that sort of stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Justin, what do you got on tap for the weekend?
Stuff.
Sunday episode? That's what I meant. What I meant.
I think, yeah, I will have a Sunday episode. I don't know who will be on it. I have to check with Chase and see if he's
okay.
available.
Sounds great. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I'll talk to y'all later.
Take it easy.